Hello, class. This is Dr. Galicia speaking for the class content area reading across curriculum. A pleasant afternoon to each one of you. Hello.
Good afternoon,
Good
sir.
afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon, boss. Sorry po, name.
All right. So yesterday we had a very comprehensive and interactive discussion about the journal review presentation by Miss Ariza May. Am I correct? It was Miss Ariza May or Miss
Si
Francel,
Miss,
rather,
Opo.
Miss Francel Echtanes. Okay, so we studied about the practical or the implications, which we consider to be three-pronged. As I shared with you, it's linguistic, psychological, and sociological. So this time, we will cover a historical perspective about reading. And then through this discussion, we're able to enrich our theoretical understanding of the roots of reading. We will go back to the ancient times where it all began from philosophical point of view and then from philosophical into scientific. So we will try to trace how how reading has evolved. The area of reading, the study of reading has evolved through decades and even millennia. Okay, so allow me to present my screen now, and then after my presentation, I think we can have one journal review presentation if we can maximize your time. All right. So I hope you can see my screen now. Can you? Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, sir.
All right. So there. Our topic for today is about general history of reading and writing. Now you may ask, Sir Omar, why is it reading and writing? Definitely there's a relationship between the two. Because when you write something, it's commonsensical to think that someone will read, right? So when there's a written work, definitely there will be readers. Although we know that our history, when it comes to communication, it began in oral tradition, in oral communication before humans were able to create their system of writing and eventually were able to read a particular text or even a document for that matter. So when we provide a general history of reading and writing, so it will bring us back to 20,000 BCE to 400 BCE. All right. So when it comes to the history and theories and models related to reading, it is definitely embedded in a story history of reading and writing in general. So if we're to provide a certain timeline here, we will start with the cave writing in France. It was discovered approximately 20,000 BCE. So those writings, those images were representations of human understanding of the world, of usually their daily experiences, their surroundings, their battles, and pictures and images of their survival and existence. That's basically what's in the cave painting or cave writing in France. And then uh, in 3600 to 3100 BCE, we have seen here a record keeping using the cuneiform, and it was made possible in Mesopotamia. Okay, so it was verified that in 3600 to 3100 BCE, there is now a system of writing called cuneiform. And then there was the invention of alphabet, the Phoenician alphabet emerged in approximately 2000 BCE, and approximately 1000 BCE, the Egyptian began to use papyrus. It's an early form of paper. So definitely papyrus is a breakthrough during the time because it will lead or it resulted in the groundwork for their system of writing as well. And in the Western civilization, particularly in Greece, the Greek civilization, as you know, is one of the earliest civilizations on Earth. There were now written accounts. although it's mythological in nature, mythological in the sense that there were created narratives, there were stories that would tell people the meaning of life, where life began, deities, divinities, gods, and goddesses. These concepts were incorporated in the writings of Homer, one of the towering figures in Greek literature during the time. So we had Iliad and Odyssey for that matter. So we can see the richness of their culture, the richness of their imagination as well, as evidenced in the writings of Homer through Iliad and Odyssey. I know those who are majoring in English are very well familiar with Iliad and Odyssey, the mythological narratives of Homer in Iliad and Odyssey are really superb, right? Are really superb that you would really question if you will watch the movie Troy, you would imagine, yeah, perhaps it's really possible that this and that exists. In Troy, if you were to locate Troy in our modern day period, experts would say that's part of Turkey. Okay, somewhere in Turkey, yung Troy na yon. Okay? And of course, yung mga Trojans and the Greeks before, may alliance sila yan. Until nandun na nga yung inagaw ni Paris, yung si Helen. Helen, no? From Sparta, and that's the term or the phrase, a face that launched 1,000 ships. And eventually, she became Helen of Troy. Kasi talagang nagkaroon ng matinding battle ang Sparta, which represent the Greeks, and Troy, yung mga Trojans naman yon. Okay? And then in approximately 750 BCE, the Greeks revised age Phoenician alphabet to include both consonants and vowels. So we're not after here naman the specifics, ito mga alphabet na to, ng mga system of writing na to, hindi naman natin to measure. The point here is that yung development nung paraan ng pagsulat ng tao, that's why we have to create, we have to recreate, we have to model, we have to remodel to serve the purpose of our existence. Kung mapapansin nyo, kung payak lang ang pamumuhay nung araw, no, ito yung lohika niyan, kung payak lang, kung yung system of writing na yon serves their purpose during the time. So yun, nagkakaintindihan kasi sila eh. Pero dahil umuunlad yung pamumuhay ng tao, kailangan ding umunlad yung sistema ng pagsulat na representasyon ng daloy ng pamumuhay. Any reaction to that? O kaya nga kahit sa modern time natin nadadagdagan ng mga words, nadadagdagan ng mga tinatawag nating characters to serve the purpose of our modern time. So in the same vein, ganun din sa kanila. Bakit umunlad yung system of writing? Kasi umuunlad din yung pamumuhay. And it's representation of their historical, political, and cultural landscape. So we can see there the dynamicity of language. And the dynamicity of language goes well with the dynamicity of their environment. Okay, have we reached a consensus here na kaya umuunlad yung paraan ng pagsulat kasi umuunlad yung pamumuhay ng tao to serve the purpose. So there should be a parallelism between the system of living and the system of writing as well. Now, in the course of history, sa reading and writing, definitely there will be explanations. And explanations are well embodied in theories. When someone asks you, what are theories? Theories are explanations. Pag tinanong kayo sa simpleng pananalita, ang teorya ay paliwanag. Halimbawa, sa nagmula ang tao, may mga teorya, may mga paliwanag. Di ba? Meron tinatawag na theory of evolution, that we evolved from apes. Sa nagmula ang universe, sa nagmula ang cosmos, may Big Bang Theory, may creation theory. Di ba mga paliwanag yan? Bakit teorya lang siya, sir? May mga paliwanag, may mga ebidensya, pero hindi tinatanggap ng lahat. Di ba? Hindi naman lahat naniniwala sa Big Bang Theory. Pero alam mo ka, RC, I just realized this, kasi ako minsan, abang naliligo, kung ano-anong pinag-iisip ko, I can see I can see a connection between Big Bang Theory and creation theory. Alam mo ka-RC, ito lang na-realize ko, no? Pero ewan ko na how it would reconcile the philosophical viewpoints and the scientific viewpoints of atheists, na kasi ang paniwala ko, no, although you can you can refute this statement. Nung sinabi ng Diyos, let there be light, yun yung Big Bang, ka-RC. Ibig sabihin, nung sinabi ng Diyos na let there be light, siyempre, kapangyarihan ng Diyos yun, no? May nagkailaw o kung ano man yung sumabog na yon, yun yung source nung mga parts ng cosmos, ng universe, na let there be light, yun yung explosion sa tingin ko na sa pantahan ng mga from the scientific community, yung Big Bang Theory, na yung biglang sumambulat yung liwanag na yon, and together with it yung mga kinakailangang parte o mga elements doon sa cosmos. Yun yung nakita ko lang doon ka-RC, no? What's your takeaway on that? Is it possible that my analysis is logical? I think you're on mute, ka-RC.
Hello, sir.
Ayun, okay po.
Hello,
Meron na,
sir.
sir.
There's this organization po, Christian Scientists. Ganyan din po ang paniniwala po nila. However po, if we will read the first chapter of John, ano po, doon po may tinutukoy po siyang tatlong uri ng light, no?
I
So,
see, I
hindi
see.
po siya energy, or it's about buhay, time. Basta po, kayo na pong bahala magbasa ng first John.
Okay, okay.
John 1. Tapos po, if we will study yung pagkakasunod of the creations, para rin po sa evolution, na for example po, in the sixth day, hayop muna bago tao. Tama po ba?
Mm-hmm.
So same thing with evolution, hayop muna, tapos naging
Tama.
tao.
Oo.
However po, in evolution, ang pinagtatalunan po kasi dyan is yung billion of years po eh.
Oo,
Ano po,
napakatagal
but
naman, ano?
opo, pero parang sa Biblia po hindi naman ganun kabagal ang kapangyarihan ng Panginoong Diyos.
Oo, yun nga.
So,
Napakatagal kasi sa scientific
opo,
community, no? Billions of years
opo.
eh.
May marami pong libro po na ukol po dyan, sir.
Anyway, RC, I'm so happy naman na yung palang naisip ko, napag-uusapan na rin pala yun,
yes,
ano?
Po.
Yung,
may isang,
oo. It's nice to know, ka-RC. Thank you for sharing, no? Okay, now, let's continue. As I was saying, dun sa pag-unlad ng sibilisasyon ng tao, yung pag-unlad din ng mga paliwanag. Natural, sa bawat panahon, may mga taong mag-iisip. May mga taong ordinaryo, may mga taong dakila, may mga taong ordinaryo, at may mga taong sila yung lilikha ng mga paliwanag o teorya. At isa na nga dyan, pagdating sa filosofiya, si Plato at si Aristotle. Aristotle na lang, no? Kasi sa American English, Aristotle, di ba, napaka-arte. Pero Aristotle na lang sa atin para medyo mapabilis yung pag-uusap. So si Plato at si Aristotle ay isa sa mga nagpaliwanag. The reason why we're reading, or the reason why we're reading and why we should read is explained by mental discipline theory. What is this mental discipline theory? So, ang mental discipline theory na to, they regard the brain or the mental faculty as what? As muscle. As muscle. The mind is like a muscle with its various parts or faculties which need to be exercised regularly through repetitive reciting of text in order to become strong and for order to function optimally. Okay? So, sino yung mga proponents niyan? Itong si Plato at si Aristotle na mga Greek philosophers. They consider Greece as the birthplace of Western civilization. And apart from them, we have Homer and many other early thinkers of ancient Greece. They use myths to understand the universe. But these mythological creations or mythological accounts are representation that they are using their minds, that they are exercising their mind because they create something. They create something, and what they created explain and was used to explain and understand the universe. Kasi natural sa tao na maghanap ng paliwanag. Natural sa tao na magtanong. Natural sa tao na mag-usisa. At sa pagtatanong at sa pag-uusisa, nangangailangan siya ng paliwanag. Nangangailangan siya ng mga teorya. Okay? So, si Plato at si Aristotle, they used to explain the universe in rational terms. Pag sinabi nating rational terms, gumamit na sila ng lohika, gumamit na sila ng filosofiya. Pero itong si Homer at yung mga kasamahan niya na iba pa, ang ginamit nilang paraan mga myths, ha? Mga myths, mga kwento na ay mitolohiya, no? Ang tao, ganyan, ay nasa ilalim ng mga Diyos, iba't ibang mga Diyos. Ang tawag nila doon ay mga divinities or deities. Okay? So, yun siya. So, mapapansin natin na believer sila ng maraming Diyos. Na kung bubuklatin nyo kasaysayan, ang Gresya, o yung bansang yan, may karakteristik sila o katangian na naniniwala sa maraming Diyos. Tama ba ako ka-RC? Ang Apostol Pablo ang sinugo, no, sa Gresya, no, sa dako ng mga hentil. Tama po ba 'yon?
Opo, sir.
Ayun.
Kawati 19.
Ayun. Kasi kailangan ituro sa kanila, no, na mali
Opo.
yung kanilang paniniwala. Kaya sinugo doon si Apostol Pablo. Ngayon, ano ang laman nitong mental discipline theory na to? Among his many writings on a variety of subjects, si Plato developed a theory na inelaborate naman o pinaunlad pa ni Aristotle. Ang sabi nila, the mind is like a muscle. And Brumbo and Lawrence in 1963 inferred that mental discipline theory is an example of Plato and Aristotle's work that has widely permeated the education and psychological literature for approximately 2,500 years or 2,500 years. This is the theory that explains why we should train our mind to be readers, that we should include reading as part of our daily lives because reading trains our mind. Reading strengthens our mind. And so most educators will agree the notion that students' minds are like muscles that need to be exercised and strengthened in order to develop and grow. So mental discipline theory is really foundational in explaining the importance of exercising our mind through exposure, through reading materials that will develop and strengthen it as if it were a muscle. Okay? So tama naman, ano? Parang ang pinaka-puso ng mental discipline theory, sanayin mo, hasain mo, okay? Para mag-grow, para mag-strengthen, o para mapagtibay, o para mapabuti pa yung estado ng pag-iisip ng utak. Okay? Yung kamay nga lang, pansinin nyo, no? Yung braso nyo, wag nyong gamitin. Halimbawa, itong kanang kamay nyo, wag nyong igalaw. Ay, nakaganyan lang. Siguro, Sir Rez, nakadikit lang dito sa dito sa tagiliran mo ng isang linggo na hindi may ginagalaw kanin. So, ano mangyayari doon, Sir Rez? So, definitely, para kang na-paralyze yung yung kanang kamay, no? And it will not be beneficial to you. It's the same thing for our mind. It's the same thing for our brain. According to Plato and Aristotle, it has to be exercised through repetitive reciting of text in order to become strong and function optimally. Okay? So, we have here another perspective, no? Bidge and Shermis summarize the highlights of this early learning theory. According to them, the central idea in mental discipline is that the mind, envisioned as a non-physical substance, lies dormant until it is exercised. Para palang vulkan no? Dormant. Na? So, na hindi lang nagiging active lang siya kung may ensayo. Faculties of the mind, specifically the memory, will, reason, and perseverance are the muscles of the mind, like physiological muscles, in the real muscles that we can see as part of our physical makeup. They are strengthened only through exercise, and subsequent to their adequate exercise, they operate automatically. Thus, learning is a matter of strengthening or disciplining the faculties of the mind, which combine to produce intelligent behavior. Can you imagine? This is a Platonic and Aristotelian perspective, and yet the truism, the veracity of this theory still applies to our very time. Hindi ba? Napakatagal nang na-conceptualize yung teorya ng disiplina sa utak or mental discipline theory. And yet, marami sa kabataan natin ngayon, baka hindi nga masyadong nagagamit ang kanilang utak sa pag-iisip. Lalo na ngayong panahon ng pandemya, marami ang tumigil sa pag-aaral. Hindi na sila nag-e-expose sa mga learning material. So what's the implication of that? What's the implication of that? Yung sinasabi dito, hindi na e-ensayo. Paano mai-strengthen? Paano ma-develop? Paano mag-grow? At paano magiging strong? At paano magpa-function optimally? That is why it has a practical implication for us teachers to ensure that the minds or the brains of our students are consistently exercised through activities that will stimulate their thinking, that will sustain their curiosity, and that will let them think analytically and even critically or beyond the box. Naiintindihan natin yan, ano? Napakadami ng paraan para ma-stimulate. Alam niyo, doon sa mga college students ko, just to share with you, no? I think some of you are teachers here naman, ano? Ang estudyante ko, ganito sa college, medyo, syempre, hindi ko naman gagawin sa inyo kasi MA naman na kayo. Ganito ang tekniko sa mga estudyante ko. Meron akong isang article ka-RC. Halimbawa, iba, diverse ang articles ko. Meron sa arts, meron sa humanities, meron sa science, meron sa astronomy. Lahat ng fields, kino-cover ko. Sports, magpapasa ko ng article sa GC namin, no? Usually, news article or journal article. They have to read it. They are required to read it. Bakit? Kasi bago mag-start ang klase ko, yung lesson ko, may recitation. At alam niyo yung recitation, tatawag ako ng 3, friends. Halimbawa, 50 yung estudyante ko, tatawag ako ng 3. Hindi mo alam kung sino tatawagin sa inyong 3. Kapag yung 3 na yon nakasagot lahat o nakasagot ng tama, 100 ang grade yung lahat. Kapag 2 lang ang nakasagot, 88 kayong lahat. Kapag isa lang ang nakasagot, 74 kayong lahat. Sir Omar, ang lupit nyo naman, ba't hindi nyo pa po si 75? Pag para mag-aral, hindi ba? Natural, ayaw nyo maka-74. Anong gagawin nun? Magbabasa. At kapag walang tumama doon sa 3, 60 kayong lahat. What's the implication of that? Pakisamahan. Kasi kapag hindi mo binasa at ikaw ay hindi nakasagot, sisisihin ka ng mga kaklase. Tamad-tamad mo kasi, pabaya ka, ayan, pinahamak mo ko bagsak tuloy tayong lahat. Okay? Ka-RC, anong reaksyon nyo doon? Masama ba akong guro?
Tama po yun, sir. Psychomar. Buti po sinabi niyo yan, sir. May nakuha po akong strategy po. Thank you po.
Sir, pwede bang gayahin yung strategy niyo?
Oo, walang problema. Gayahin
Random sampling po.
Exactly, ka-RC. Bakit? Random hindi mo alam kung sino tatawagin. Natural, maghahanda ka. At syempre, mahihiya ang bata, no? Pag, uy, mo ba yan? Baka hindi tayo makasagot. Pero, don't get me wrong, hindi nawawala yung puso ng pagiging guro. Kapag nararamdaman ko na walang nahihirapang sagutin, syempre, babaguhin nyo naman yung tanong nyo. So, gawin yung essay type, gawin yung subjective, para kahit medyo mali yung sagot dahil parang essay, subjective, makatama na rin para ma-adjust nyo naman. At ang ginagawa ko pa, yung pag naka-74 or 60, ano po, halimbawa 60 lahat, walang nakasagot, no? So, meron akong, bonus, meron akong twist. Rinananya ka ba? Meron akong twist. So, meron akong 2 papel, bubunot yung huling sumagot. Sa 2 papel na yon ang nakalagay 60 as is, o yung isa naman ay 1 more question. Kumbaga bonus question. So pag nabunot yung 60 as is, wala na. Yun na talaga yung grade nyo. Pag naman nabunot yung another question, ayun, bibigyan ko ng isang pagkakataon na makasagot para naman dun sa 74. Pero yung 74 na yun, sa totoong buhay, ginagawa ko namang, pwede nyo namang i-adjust, 75 or 80, because you are the master of your own classroom. Any reaction to it, Sir Jason?
Hello, sir. Good afternoon po. Actually, ganyan din po, hindi naman po eksaktong ganyan. Ina-apply ko rin yan sa mga estudyante ko, yung mga ganyang klase ng strategy. Para at least, pagdating nila sa klase is hindi parang nakikipag-usap ka lang sa hangin or what.
Oo, totoo.
Para at least, nandun na sila, meron na silang alam sa kung ano yung gagawin for that day.
At hindi lang yan, multi-dimensional ang benefits ka-RC, di ba? Nagbasa ka na, may natutunan ka pang bago, at yun nga, yung participation at yung thrill. Alam nyo, multi-dimensional ang benefit nun. Kasi sinasabi ko sa mga estudyante ko, isipin nyo, itong mental discipline theory, i-apply mo to. Nagbasa ka, ito ang pag-reverse psychology ko sa mga estudyante ko. Imagine niyo class, isang oras lang o sa isang araw, 24 hours. Wala kayong dahilan para hindi magbasa. May internet ka. At sa internet, kahit sa Facebook, marami namang credible sources na nag-share dyan ng article, ng mga credible sources. Mamili ka kung anong gustong artikulong gusto mo basahin. Kung ano nakapukaw ng interest mo, i-click mo yon. Isang artikulo o isang text sa isang araw, 365 days sa isang taon, ilang artikulo ang nabasa mo. Kahit 23 hours kang mag-Dota, sige, yung isang artikulo, wala pang 5 minuto, tapos mo na. Sabi ng mga estudyante ko, oo nga sir, hindi ko kayo i-check kung ginagawa nyo yan. Pero tandaan nyo, 1 article a day, that's 365 articles a year, that's 3,650 articles in 10 years time. Can you imagine what you know in the span of 10 years? Have you realized that? Kasi itong mental discipline theory, kailangan mo disiplinahin ang sarili mo. Hindi dapat dilipas ang isang araw na wala kang nabasa. Whether it's printed or online text. Ano ba? Alam nyo, class, yung pagbabasa kasi, when you develop the habit of reading, no day would pass without you reading. O kahit nga na-CR ako, Sir RC, nasa CR, di ba habang nag-e-enjoy ka doon, o umiiri ka doon, nagbabasa ka. May hawak ka namang cellphone, di ba? It's possible. O di ba, Sir Renz? Yun yun. So anyway, you can try that. You can try that. Kaya lang, yun nga, ibabagay nyo din sa mga estudyante nyo. Kasi pag sa mga per section niya, napaka-exciting yan. And usually, talaga namang masasagot yung mga tanong mo. Pero kapag sa lower section, pwedeng mag-strategize kayo, yung profiling din ng estudyante, tingnan nyo rin yun. It's very important then. Okay? So yan ang pinakapuso ng mental discipline theory. Yung associationism naman natin is a second educational and psychological theory that dates back to ancient times. No? Is a theory of psychology and education that is devoted to the study of how learning occurs. Okay? So kung yung mental discipline theory, paano natin ina-exercise ang utak, ito naman kung paano natututo. And sabi ni Aristotle pa rin, he speculated about 3 kinds of connections that aid memory and learning. Because associationism examines how events or ideas can become associated with one another in the mind to result in a form of learning. Sometimes may screenshot tayo, no? So yung associationism. So tingnan natin yung sinasabi ni Aristotle pa rin dito, no? So sabi niya, yung una ay contiguity. The idea that things occur together in time or space, time and space in association with the mind. For instance, yung pagbabrush mo ng ngipin, pag-take mo ng shower, getting dressed and having breakfast and all that, these are ideas which are associated with things we do early in the morning. So yon. So pwede nyo di ipasok dito sa associationism, yung conditioning, no, na-connect natin yung isang bagay sa isang bagay. So, halimbawa, kapag yung isang pangyayari, napahiya ka, di ba, yung ganung uri ng action mo, nagbunga sa ganito, pagkapahiya mo, na-associate mo yon, tendency, you would avoid doing that in the future. Pero yung isang bagay, maganda yung naging bunga na i-connect mo yung isang action, magre-resulta sa isang consequence na positive, the higher the likelihood that you would do the same thing again. Di ba? Yun din yon, connections din yon, associationism din yon. So yung similarity naman, we tend to learn if we can see similarities, similar features and properties, di ba? O yung isang bagay, halimbawa, yung isang learning o isang input, we have the tendency to understand it better if we find similarity no, sa ating karanasan, sa ating nabasa, sa schema natin, sa alam mo na, you find resemblance, you find similarity, so learning is facilitated. Or for instance, if a person were trying to remember a list of grocery items, one good approach would be to organize them according to similar categories. Dairy, produce, breads, and meat. So yung categorization is one way of establishing similarity. And according to Aristotle, it's a good way to learn and to remember. Okay, para sa memory and learning natin. And yung third one naman, yung kabaligtaran, yung contrast. It's association by opposition. Association that exists between words, say light and dark, high-low, happy and sad. So, natututo din ng tao when we find connections through opposition. Na tama naman, ano? So, halimbawa, i-analyze natin. Dutertads versus Dilawan. So, makikita natin, opposition, contrast, mas maiintindihan natin, pag pala sinabing Dilawan, eto pala. Pag sinabi palang Dutertads, eto. Kaya lang, hindi naiintindihan ng tao that our political colors are not only limited to that of Duterte and to that of the Liberal Party. No. Hindi naman ibig sabihin na kontra ka sa gobyerno, dilawan ka na. No. That's wrong. That's fallacious reasoning o palsong pangangatwiran. Bakit? Kasi pwede namang hindi ka kasama sa dalawang partido na yon. You are not pro-liberal, you're not pro-Duterte, you are pro-Philippines. Di ba? Maraming ganyan mga argumento sa Facebook na kontrahin mo lang ang gobyerno, isipin na dilawan ka na. So, napakababa ng uri ng diskurso ng ganyang mga tao na ang ganyan ng mga pag-iisip. Okay? So, yan ang mental discipline theory and associationism. They were able to retain their prominence in educational thought for an unprecedented and still unequaled period of time. They were the reigning educational theories throughout the Hellenistic age, the age of the Roman Empire, up to the Middle Ages. And that's not to say na hindi na applicable sa modern time natin itong associationism and mental discipline theory. Kasi nga, behavioral, yung bibigyan natin ng umbrella, behaviorist yung pinaka-general theoretical underpinning ng dalawa. So hanggang ngayon, ginagamit pa rin natin yung mga yan. Okay? Ito namang unfoldment theory. Nako, ma-appreciate niyo to. Ang sabi na unfoldment theory na si Rosu, particularly here, learning is most facilitated through a natural unfolding of the mind based on individual curiosity and interest. It actually laid the groundwork for John Dewey's inquiry learning. Ibig sabihin ng inquiry learning, student-centered, nakafocus dun sa learner, yung paghahanap niya ng mga karanasan at ng mga matututunang materials based on curiosity. Okay? Ang sabi dito, in contrast to mental discipline theory, in which the attributes of the mind must be strengthened through disciplined efforts, and yung associationism naman, which attempts to explain how learning occurs through connections, beginning in the 18th century, several theories suggest that learning is most facilitated through a natural unfolding of the mind. Sa nakafocus, sabi, sa curiosity daw at sa interest. So makatwid, hindi lang dapat yung bata ay tinetrain mo lang, tinetrain yung utak, pero we should also factor in or take into consideration their curiosity and interest. So we can see here a paradigm shift, okay, in educational philosophy as well as educational realm. Okay? So although the dominant approach in the age of the Enlightenment continued to the cultivation of rational thought through mental discipline, eto na. Some thinkers in this period began to advocate cultivating feeling and passion because learners are not robots. Okay? So nagkaroon na dito from behaviorism, naging constructivism na. Okay? Constructivism. Okay? Ibig sabihin ng constructivism, active member ang learner sa creation ng learning. Doon kasi doon sa mental discipline at sa associationism, behavioral ang theoretical underpinning. Kaya tanggap sila ng tanggap, tinetrain no, ng teachers, ng parents, ng community, pero dito sa unfoldment theory, naging behaviorist na. So, meron ng kinalaman kung ano ang gusto ng bata. Okay? So, it led to the period ng Romanticism, wherein we consider the individual interest and curiosity of learners. Okay? So, si Rosu, he believed that children should lead their own education and explore what interested them. Sumang-ayon naman si Pestalozzi. Kaya lang itong si Pestalozzi, dinagdagan niya yung paniniwala ni Rousseau. Ang sabi niya, children needed informal instruction from adults to guide their learning. I couldn't agree more. Hindi pwedeng hayaan mo lang ang bata. Hindi pwedeng sila lang. Kailangan may guidance pa rin. At sabi naman ni Froebel, sabi niya, he believed in Rousseau's and Pestalozzi's perspectives, but he emphasized the importance of play in learning. So if we're to sum up, okay, ito kasi si Rousseau, may sinulat siyang libro, ang title ay Emily, na kung saan meron itong batang lalaki, pinalaki siya sa nature, away from the evils of society and allowed to follow his own curiosities and interests. Eventually, Emily develops into an adult of high moral character and goodness as a result of his unique upbringing. So we can see here many angles to consider. Una, yung nature, anong uri ng nature? You cannot apply it to everyone. Paano kung ang uri ng nature, kung saan lumaki ang bata, puro digmaan? Paano naman magiging healthy ang paglaki ng batang ito? Di ba? Puro patayan, puro violence, kahirapan, gutom. So you see, it would be the opposite of the belief of Rousseau, of the ideal, of the idealism proposed by Rousseau. Hindi naman, no? Bagaman gusto ng bata, curious siya doon, interesado siya doon, paano kung hindi kayang ibigay ng kapaligiran, yung mga resources, hindi naman kayang i-provide. So, we won't meet the desired purpose. We won't meet the desired aims of your plan. All right? So, in accordance with the unfoldment theory, first presented in this popular novel, sabi ni Rousseau, yung contribution ni Rousseau advocated that educators should follow children's leads regarding what and when they wanted to learn. So ito yung applicability ng unfoldment theory. Alam niyo kung saan nangyayari ito? Sa college usually. Ikaw yung pipili ng kurso mo, di ba? But that's not the reality for all. Because some parents would decide for the program or course that their children should take. Yes or no? Di ba ganyan pa rin naman? Pero dapat ang nasusunod pagdating sa college na, kung susundin natin si unfoldment theory, kung ano talaga yung gusto ng bata. Kaya sa mga estudyante ko sa eduk, sinabi ko, yung sa mga napilitan lang mag-eduk at wala sa puso nyo ang pagtuturo, tatanda kayo agad. Kapag hindi nyo gusto ang ginagawa nyo, ito kasi ang logic. Kapag hindi mo gusto ginagawa mo, ka-RC, I know that you would agree with me. Dalawa pagod. Pagod mo dun sa ginagawa mo at pagod mo na hindi mo gusto yung ginagawa mo. Ibang pagod pa yun eh. Oo, tama.
Distress.
Stress-related, distress. Di ba? Kaya,
Not eustress.
oo, pag gusto mo ginagawa mo, parang wala eh. Parang nag-enjoy ka lang doon, ano? Pero hindi naman sa lahat ng pagkakataon. Syempre, napapagod din naman tayo. But my point there is, you love what you do. Okay? And it definitely is manifested, no? sa disposition mo bilang isang tao. Yun siya, kaya kailangan mahal natin ang ginagawa natin. Na? So tama itong unfoldment theory. Kailangan yung mga bata ay nasusunod nila yung kanilang mga nais. Provided na maganda yon, ano? Pero meron pa ring support. Tama si Pestalozzi, na kahit na yun yung gusto ng bata, kailangan may guidance pa rin, may paliwanag, ano ba yung mga expectations, ano ba yung mga pagdadaanan, di ba? Kasi baka gusto ng bata yun, overwhelming naman pala, nung na-trauma, my gosh, ito pala yung gusto ko, ito pala, maaga akong mamamatay. O, kailangan na ipaliwanag ng tama ng SPS, ng mga guro, kaya tama itong si Pestalozzi. At tama rin naman si Probel. Sabi ni Probel, meron dapat element ng play. O, alam nyo, yung play naman, iba-iba naman ang konsepto. Yung binanggit ko kanina, yung parang may game, o yung parang may parusa, yung parang may element of surprise, thrill, enjoyment, and punishment. Play din yun eh. Kaya lang, ibang level lang. Okay? Pero syempre, sa mga mas bata, di ba? Kung ano-ano mga play. I'm not expert in that, pero yung mga early childhood, ako'y hangang-hanga, no? Napakahuhusay magturo at ang tiyatyaga sa bata, no? Yung mga kinder, mga prep, ganyan-ganyan. Okay? So sa makatwid, sumasang-ayon ba tayo sa mga pananaw ni Rosu, Pestalozzi, at ni Probel? Ako, sumasang-ayon ako sa kanila. Kay Rosu, sang-ayon ako na tama, sundin ang curiosity and interest, pero hindi sapat. Kailangan pa rin ng guidance. Dinagdag yan ni Pestalozzi. At si Probel naniwala sa dalawa. Pero sabi niya, para daw mas mapaganda o mapaigting yung pagkagusto sa mga interest nila at sa curiosity, kailangan hahaluan ng element ng play sa pagkatuto. Because that will reinforce learning because they enjoy it. Okay, they enjoy it and it's not traumatic. No? Paano kaya ito? Applicable kaya ito, Sir Ka-RC, sa law?
If that is their love po if that is their passion po, I think po.
Oo, saka depende sa prof. Kasi naniniwala ko Ka-RC, may mga prof din naman sa law na talaga namang hindi rin naman super, kala mo namang ang prof mo yung super strict, no? Meron din namang feeling ko na mga iba din ng dynamic sa pagtuturo. Okay? So, any reaction to it, Sir Jason? Sumasang-ayon ba tayo sa mga perspectives nila, sir?
Yes, sir. Actually, parang dito nga, parang feeling ko dito po binase yung tinatawag na differentiated activity ngayon na
Very good.
isa sa mga ini-evaluate po sa amin sa public school. Ini-evaluate kami if we can apply differentiated activities kasi we cater various students with different backgrounds.
Totoo, yung differentiated instruction, no, Sir Jason, very good on that point. Miss Almira, any reflection? First time mo ba encounter yung mga tao na to na sila pala ang mga nakaisip niyang mga yan? Miss Almira.
Yes, sir. Ngayon ko lang po narinig yung story, especially yung kay Rosu po.
Yun. Miss Micaela, any
Kulang pa
reaction?
talaga ako sa reading, sir.
Oo, okay lang yun. Kaya ka nga nag-enroll eh. Okay lang yun. Miss Micaela? Mm. Mm. Very good. Tama. Tama. At yan din yung isa sa basehan ng MI or multiple intelligence. Bakit? Iba-iba ang talino ng tao. Natural, iba-iba ang interest mo. Depende yon sa kung saan ka nag-excel. Kaya yung kay Howard Gardner na multiple intelligence ay associated pa rin dyan sa unfoldment theory based on what we want and based on what interests us because that's what we believe that we will excel in. Tama. Di ba? So kung saan ka mahusay, yun ang kunin mo at doon ka magpakahusay. Naalala ko yung sabi ni Ludwig van Beethoven, ito yung isa sa favorite quotes ko, no? Ang sabi niya, do not only practice your art, but force your way into its secrets. for it and knowledge can raise men to the divine. Di ba? Ang ganda-ganda. Na si Beethoven yan, quote niya yan. So, it's one of my favorite quotes and it's one of my mantras as well. Na do not only practice your art, force your way into its secret. So, yun yun. No? Kailangan ma-master mo yung craft mo for you to give glory to God. Kasi ang sabi niya, for it and knowledge can raise men to the divine. Okay, yun siya. Alright? So I think we agreed. We all agreed with this. Okay, so let's have uh, some perspectives pa. Na-cover naman na natin. Yung kay Probel, ayan. Ang sabi ni Frobel, dagdag dito, he believed that adult is responsible for the education of a child and they need to be concerned with the child's natural unfolding. He also followed Pestalozzi's ideas and provided plans for instructing young children, but he is best known for emphasizing the importance of play in learning. He specified, however, that realizing the fullest benefits of playing to learn required adult guidance, tama naman, and direction as a planned environment. He saw the teacher as a designer of activities and experiences that facilitate learning. It was Probel who coined the word kindergarten, which means children's grade. Oh, siya pala yun. Okay, si Probel. Kaya nga, mahalaga sa klase natin yung profiling. Why? Kasi kailangan alam mo mga interest ng estudyante mo. Madali namang mag-profiling, no? Sa first day of class mo, okay, class, in a word or two, please write your interest. Please write what interests you, your hobbies, ganyan-ganyan. At ang gawin nyo, yung mga interest na nakita nyo doon, pag sama-samahin nyo, i-categorize nyo, at i-incorporate nyo sa lesson nyo. Sama nyo sa motivation nyo, isama nyo sa input nyo, kahit grammar lesson yan, ito yung mga sentence mo, may kinalaman dun sa mga interest nila. They can connect because they are interested in it. Nasusundan ba doon si Sir Omar? Kaya nga kahit na nga ito, napakatatagal na itong mga teoryang ito. Imagine niyo no, 18th, 17th or 18th century, 21st century na tayo, pero ito 18th century, but the applicability still rings true today. Okay? Mapapansin nyo, yung tatlong teorya, ang bilis naman ng oras, wag naman ganun. Okay? Yung tatlong teorya, yung mental discipline, yung associationism, at yung tinatawag nating unfoldment theory, sila ay non-scientific. No? Based on observation lang, based on experience, wala yung scientific side. Okay? Pero pagdating sa writing and reading, hindi pwede na wala yon. Pero mapapansin nyo, hindi magkakaroon ng structuralism at early scientific foundations of reading kung walang forerunners. Sa makatwid, it's commonsensical to men, to humans, to always develop, to define, to redefine, to create, to recreate, to form, to create something new, to develop. It's a nature. It's a nature to us. When I say it's a nature to us, it's common, not it's common, kalikasan natin. Bahagi ng kalikasan natin, no, ng tao na mag-develop. Hindi man sa panahon na to, perhaps. Next year, next decade, perhaps. Pero yung pagde-develop, we always look at what exists. And these scientific people, the scientific community, which look at reading from the scientific viewpoint, structuralist viewpoint, syempre, kinonsider nila yung mga naunang teorya. And they found na hindi enough yon to explain the complexity of reading. Okay? And so it gave birth to structuralist theoretical framework, another paradigm shift here. But structuralism, it's a school of thought in psychology. But in the aspect of reading, it sought to explain the structure of the mind through the study of perception. So yung perceptual understanding natin. Thus, reading was first studied through perception research, design, napapansin nyo, doon sa kaninang tatlo, walang pinag-uusapang mga empirical evidence, research evidence. Pero dito, sa structuralism and early scientific foundations of reading, nandito na yung element ng scientific investigation. Nandiyan na yung bagal ng pagbasa, yung paggalaw ng mata pag nagbabasa, Okay? Nandito na yon sa panahon na to. Okay? So, Vinesky 1984 summarized the early history of reading research. Ang sabi dyan, ang early studies of reading took place with the world's first experimental psychology lab, which was established in the late 1870s in Germany by Wilhelm Wundt. Okay? Sa German psychologist associated with the structuralist perspective. And then meron din tayo dito si Cattell, assistance ni Van pursue the study of perceptual processes by investigating aspects of the reading process like what? Letter and word recognition, legibility of print, and span of attention. And according to Vinesky, yung nag-summarize, 2 seminal research findings based on work on that were reported by Cattell. Ano yon? Dinemonstrate nila na yung bilis sa pagbabasa ay konektado pala sa sentences. Or yung bilis ng pagbabasa ng mga salita connected in sentences was faster than their speed for reading disconnected words. So what's the practical implication for reading? Kapag nagtuturo, lalo sa phonological awareness, ang sabi daw pala, kailangan expose ang bata sa sentence level, hindi lang yung mga isolated words. So, ayun naman ginagawa natin sa foundational years, di ba? Una muna, mga letters, and then sunod ay mga words, and then phrases, clauses, sentences, hanggang sa longer stretches of discourse. Sila ang nag-umpisa ng pagpapaliwanag dyan. Pero hindi masyadong naintindihan yan and not fully understood, I mean, in the 1950s. Kaya patuloy pa rin yung pagre-research dyan, no? Sa pagbabasa. Nagkaroon na ng mga dissertation, nagkaroon na ng pag-analyze sa mga eye voice span, na time-lapse between the eyes exposure to print, and yung pagbabasa, yung enunciation, nandiyan na rin yung tinatawag na perceptions of print, single letter words through reaction time studies, focus on areas such as eye, voice span. In other words, no? Huwag na nating isa-isahin. Ang pinupunto lang dito sa structuralist and sa early scientific foundations of reading, nakita na natin yung pag-unlad sa pag-unawa sa pagbabasa. Mas nakita na natin na ang pagbabasa pala is a complex process, it's more than perception, but also it's about behavior, it's about attitude, the psychological aspect, the training. In other words, dito na pumasok na hindi sapat yung naunang tatlong teorya. Na i-discipline mo lang yung utak, na i-associate mo lang para matuto, na gusto mo lang yon, kailangan ng iba't ibang aspeto, yung mga resources, yung mga reading materials, no? Yung nagtuturo, yung differentiated instruction, yung habit, yung attitude formation, yung mga attitudinal variables, yung perception, yung motivation, yung interest, yung passion, yung discipline, yung exposure, lalo na ngayon, online pa. Natural, online ng learning, nababago na naman ang mga paradigm. Ano kaya ang nangyayari sa utak natin? No? Siyempre, nandiyan na rin yung cognitive processing, nandiyan na rin yung neurological perspective na pag nagbabasa ang tao, ano nangyayari sa utak? Anong bahagi ng utak ang na-activate? Is it the Wernicke's area? Is it the Broca's area? Is it the amygdala? O ano kaya? No? So, pumasok na din dyan. Sa makatwid, mula noong na-conceptualize ang structuralism at yung early scientific foundations of reading, sumambulat na ang disiplina ng reading, ang lahat ng mga scientific or empirical evidence na nagpapaliwanag sa complexity ng reading as a human activity. So we can see here na ang husay ng tao. Ang husay ng tao. Sapagkat yung mga teorya noong unang panahon, ancient times, at yung mga teorya ngayon sa modernong panahon ay improvement. Improvement. Kung paano ini-improve yung pamumuhay ng tao, kaalinsabay nun. Yung pag-improve o pagbabago o pag-unlad ng mga pagpapaliwanag ng tao sa iba't ibang larangan ng buhay. Nakikita nyo, class, no, na itong pinag-aaralan natin, representation ng civilization natin. Umunlad ang pamumuhay ng tao. Umunlad ang daloy ng pamumuhay, umunlad din yung pagpapaliwanag. Kaya, mapapansin niyo yung mga teorya nga, ano ba yan? Ang lala naman na nitong teorya na to, para ang bigat naman ng teorya na to. Kasi ang bigat na ng panahon natin. Grabe na ang mga inbensyon. grabe na ang teknolohiya. Natural, kaaginsabay nun, yung pagiging complex din ng mga theories, ng mga paliwanag. Pero mapapansin nyo na kapag may teorya si Ka-RC, pupunahin. Kasi ang theories should be open to scientific scrutiny. Ibig sabihin nun, pag nag-propose ka ng teorya, hindi lang ikaw ang makakaalam nun, community. And therefore, if it's open to public scrutiny, you should not be afraid to face criticism. But you find the beauty in it when you propose a theory, when other people criticize your work, be thankful. Why? Because they are reading it. It doesn't mean that you did not contribute something. It means that you contribute something. And that contribution leads to other people thinking about your work and improving your work. Nasusundan niyo ba si Sir Omar? Pag kayo, alam mo, may propose kayong teorya, nilait ang teorya nyo, magpasalamat kayo kasi yung teorya nyo na yun, you attempt to explain. But perhaps your explanation is flawed, your explanation is lacking, but you have to look at the positive side of it, that you're able to contribute something. Kasi, alam nyo, even to mga experts, nagkakamali. Nagkakamali. Pero they don't stop. They keep on developing. They keep on innovating. They keep on creating for the benefit of human civilization. All right? So, that's our lesson for today. I think time has flown so fast. It's 6 na naman. Ano ba naman yan, Sir Renz? Ang bilis-bilis. Anyway, tapos naman na. Okay? So, we failed to cover one journal review, and Sir Renz will proceed with your report tomorrow as well as one journal review. Okay? So, I think we have the picture taking na. Ang bilis ng oras. Sir Renz, napipicturean mo din ba yung yung habang nagle-lesson tayo? Parang,
Yes po, every slide. Kaso,
okay.
iniipon ko lang po, yung pong mga first and last lang po yung sinasend ko po sa inyo. Pero pwede ko rin lahat.
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Renz. Okay, I think we can have the picture taking na. Your best smile, please. 1, 2, 3, smile.
Thank you
Okay,
po.
so we have 1 minute. No, don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. We have 1 minute before we end our class. Miss Catherine Pablo, your overall reaction and reflection, please.
Yes po. So we discuss all about the general history of reading first. So nag-start po yung reading as a cave writing. So dahil po doon, so nag-evolve po siya para to serve its purpose sa ating system of living and writing. And then, nagkaroon din po ng mga theories about that. Katulad nga po ng sinabi niyo, sir, theories or the explanation kung bakit nga po nag-evolve yung ating reading. So, diniscuss ko po is yung, una is yung tatlo, yung mental discipline theory and associationism. And then, the unfoldment theory ni Rosu, and then supported by Pestalozzi na sabi nga po ni Rosu na dapat yung education ng bata is sarili din nila in their own. And then dapat din po, sabi ni Pestalozzi, sinusuportahan din ng adult, dapat meron pong guide ng adult. And then hindi lang basta-basta learning, pero dapat meron pa din pong kasamang play according kay Professor. And then, so last po is yung scientific which is structuralism and early specific foundation of reading. So sabi nga po dito na natin in-associate yung perception and the scientific investigation. And then, kaya po tayo nagkaroon ng ganito is dahil nga po sa pag-unlad, sa pag-unawa, sa pagbabasa. So, yun po, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Miss Catherine. Tano, it's exactly 6 o'clock. I'll see you again tomorrow for another dose of learning. Enjoy the rest of the night.
Sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you po.